All right, we're going to be reading chapters 19 and 20. So this is chapter 19, Into the Black Down Under. We have to leave the old lady's place because you never know. The cops may come knocking on each door. They're like bugs, my father says. They're not too smart, but there's lots of them and they keep at it. On the other side of the alley is this boarded up building. It used to be part of the Testaments until a fire burned it out, and my father decides we'll hide there until Iggy gets a car for us. He reaches out and pulls off a big piece of plywood with one hand. The screechy noise the nails make sounds like a cat fight, and the next thing there's a real cat, a black one, that leaps out from behind the plywood. My father jumps so hard he yanks me to the ground, and I bump my head. "Dumb animal," he says. "Get up now, that's just a scratch. A little blood never hurt a man." It doesn't hurt. And anyhow, I sort of like the taste of salt in my mouth. It makes me feel awake. "Get in there," he says. And then he's pulling me through this old burned out window and we're inside the building. Everything is black and wet and dripping except for where snow has come down through holes in the roof. Most of the inside walls are gone and you can see where the entire beam was chewed by the fire. All the old pipes and wires are hanging down and everywhere underfoot is broken glass the color of smoke. "I used to wonder exactly what hell looked like," he says. "Now I know." He finds a place where the stairs go down into the basement and he pulls away the boards and planks. "You should feel right at home," he says, "cooped up like you were in that cellar hole." It's so dark he has to use a cigarette lighter, and the flame is so puny you can't see to the bottom of the stairs. "You go first," he says. "We can't have both of us on the same step, it might break." The steps are made of thick wood, but slick and punky soft where the water had been dripping all these years, and I can feel how it sags under my feet. There's a rail that's hard to grab with my hands tied, and the way he's holding up the lighter, you might as well keep your eyes closed because it's that dark, you can't see a thing. I slip and start to fall, and then he's pulling back on the rope, and I'm hanging there in the middle of the air with my feet skittering, and he's going, "Easy does it, boy. We'll take this one step at a time." Finally, we get to the bottom. There's a little slant of light coming through this narrow cellar window, enough so we can feel our way around all the burned junk that has fallen through the floor. "The accommodations could be better," he says. "I'll grant you that. As soon as Iggy fixes things, we'll be on our way." He ties my feet back up and loops the rope tight around the old busted boiler that's tipped over, so I can't move or see what's behind me. "Understand you can't be trusted quite yet," he says. "Once we get on the road, things will be different. You'll get smarter every mile we put between us and this place." He rips a piece off my shirt and ties it on my mouth so I can't be shouting, he says, and wake the neighborhood. He rubs his hand through my hair again, real gentle. I'm pretty sure there's a sweet smile on his face, although it's so dim you can't be sure. "You just sit tight here a minute," he says. "I have to see a man about a car." Then he's gliding away, and I hold myself still in case this is a trick, and he's really sneaking up behind me to see if I can get my hands loose, which I can't. They're numb and bloated from the rope cutting into my wrists. And finally, I stop trying and just sit there, letting my eyes open up in the dark. I can barely make out that narrow window, hardly big enough so a cat could slip through, and under it is this big pile of coal slagged up against the foundation wall. Overhead, there's cracking or creaking, with the weight of him moving around, trying to be light on his feet. I'm listening to him up there and trying to see out that little window when something moves against the light. I'm pretty sure there's a scratching sound coming from the window, except you can't always believe what you hear in the dark. Then whatever it is goes away, and I'm thinking it was probably a cat, or maybe a dog sniffing around. Finally, I just keep still, because the more I move, the tighter the rope gets. Next thing, I hear someone on the steps. These light feet trying to be real quiet. And then a flashlight comes on and this woman's voice says, "You there, kid?" Loretta Lee. I can't say anything because of the gag. All I can do is sort of kick around a little, let her know where I am. You can tell by her shaky, thin voice she's scared of the dark. "Kid, tell me that's you." "Oh, Lord Jesus, what am I doing down here?" Then the beam of that flashlight is hitting me right in the eyes, and she's tripping over stuff trying to get to me. First thing she does is pull the gag off, and I take a deep, deep breath that makes my lungs burn. "It ain't right," she whispers, "keeping your old kid tied up. It ain't right. He ain't the man I thought I remembered, that's for sure." I want to say something, but I'm not sure what, and anyhow, my mouth is too dry. She's put the flashlight on the floor, aiming up so she can try to untie the rope. "The man is a genius for knots," she says. I can feel how her hands are shaking as she's fumbling around. Also, I can hear the boards creaking overhead, but you can't be sure. It might be just the wind. Loretta goes, "The plan is, Iggy keeps him busy while I get you loose. Now isn't that a good plan? There's enough cops up there to start a war. We'll be safe enough if we get out of this godforsaken place." Her hands are pulling at the rope, nervous and quick, but the knots just keep getting tighter. Finally, she gets this idea to cut the rope on the ragged edge of the boiler. "I saw this on the movies once," she whispers. "I forget what movie." She's working the rope against the sharp edge of the old boiler, and sure enough, it cuts through. Just the one cut won't do it, though, and she has to do it twice more before my wrists get loose, and I can't really help much because my hands are all numb and swollen. "Next thing is this piece around your ankles," she says. "I sure can't carry you up out here. You think you can walk? I get this loose?" "Yes, ma'am," I say. That makes her giggle. "My, ain't we got a polite all of a sudden. There, that should about do it." My feet come loose and I try to stand up, and I have to lean some of my weight on her. She goes, "Oh, just a second, sugar, let me get this flashlight." She bends over for the flashlight, and then she's making this sound like something is caught in her throat. Two big hands are squeezing her neck. I see how my father is coming huge out of the dark, and he's got his hands around her throat, shoving her back. "You ignorant creature," he says. "I'll teach you to put your dirty hands on my son." Loretta can't say anything. She's sinking down on her knees and trying to pull his hands away from her neck, but it's useless. She can't stop him. He's squeezing her dead with his bare hands, and no one can stop him. No one. No one. All right, chapter 20. Freak the Mighty strikes again. Even a total goon like me knows you can't stop Killer Kane, but I go ahead and try anyhow. My hands are still numbed out and I can hardly walk, so all I can do is sort of fall on top of him and try to shove him loose from her. I'm going, "Stop, I see you. Daddy, please, please stop. You're killing her." He just twitches me away. He's made of iron and steel. He's gritting his teeth and squeezing her neck. You can't see the white of her eyes, and she's not even trying to get away anymore. I try to get between them, and I'm going, "I saw you kill her. I saw you kill Mom. I never forgot. Not ever. I know you did it. I know." It's like I'm trapped underwater or something, so weak and floaty I can hardly fight him. Can't prise his fingers loose from my mother's neck, from Loretta's neck, because everything is mixed up, and he's doing the same thing to Loretta Lee he did to my mom, choking the life out of her, and he's got that same cold killer look because he wants her to die, like he wanted my mom to die, and nothing else matters except what he wants. I'm there in the dark, pushing at him. The light catches her eyes, and I can see her looking at me. She's so far away, it's like I'm 4 years old again, peeking out from behind the bedroom door and then running to bang my little fists at him while the light fades from her eyes. I can't get him loose of her, so all I can do is keep screaming, "I know you killed her! I saw you do it! You killed her and I'll never forget, not ever!" Finally, he jerks his head and I can feel him looking at me, and then his hands open. Loretta slips away, and I can hear her breathing like a broken bird in a dark cellar. "What?" he says, reaching for me. "What did you say?" "I saw you do it," I say. "I saw you kill my mother." "You weren't but 4 years old," he says, and now his big hands are starting to curl around my neck, except he's holding me soft. I can feel his heart beating and his cool breath in my face that makes me want to fall asleep. "You can't possibly recall that event," he says. "You think you can, but you can't." "I can," I say. "I do." "Ah, that's the poison they put in your mind, boy. They brainwashed you into thinking you can remember." He's pulling me close, holding me soft by the neck, and now I can feel the pulse in his hands. "They never talk about it," I say. "They don't have to, because I can't ever forget it, no matter how much I try." "No," he says, and his face is so close. I can feel the heat rising off him. "Impossible, you can't." "You were wearing your brown corduroy trousers," I say, talking so fast it makes me shake inside, "and the black t-shirt with no sleeves. I tried to stop you, but I couldn't, and you carried me back into my room and put me to bed and told me I was just dreaming. You locked me in that room, and I ran to the window and broke it with my hand and started yelling for someone to come and help Mommy." My father sighs and says, "Lord, I wish you hadn't done that, boy. It cost me years." "They caught you, Daddy, and they put you away forever, except then you fooled them and they let you go." "I have to clean this up," he says like he's talking to himself alone. "I have to clean this up and get out of here." That's when his hands start to tighten hard and fast around my neck. I'm trying to fight him, but I'm so small and weak, and he's so big and strong, you can't stop him. No one can stop Killer Kane. He squeezes and squeezes and squeezes. I'm in this faraway place, falling backwards, real slow and dreamy, when I hear a window breaking. Then a small, faraway voice is saying, "Put your hands up, villain!" And I really am falling, and air is coming back into my lungs so fast it hurts. I'm lying there all crumpled and sideways. I can see Freak. He's rolled down through the cellar window and into the pile of coal. and he's trying to stand up. I'm warning you, he says in that fierce, bold way he has. He's got a squirt gun, one of those big blaster models that holds about a gallon of water. Killer Kane is looking at me. He's looking at Loretta all crumpled and moaning. He's looking at Freak. Then he shakes his head and goes, I know a real gun when I see it, you little monster. He makes a move, reaching out. Freak scuttles back a little ways, but he can't really run, and even if he could, there's no place to go. This your partner in crime? Killer Kane says to me. I guess maybe you are a retard after all. Freak is pointing the squirt gun right in his face, and he says, Guess what I got for Christmas, Mr. Kane? Guess right, because your life depends on it. Killer Kane doesn't say anything. He's just reaching out real slow because he knows that Freak can't get away. The squirt gun? Freak says, and a chemistry set. That's what I got for Christmas. Killer Kane just looks at the squirt gun. He shakes his head, like, who are you kidding? Sulfuric acid, Freak says, raising up the gun and sighting along the barrel. Good, reliable H2SO4, an oily, colorless, corrosive liquid used in dyes, paints, explosives, and many chemical experiments. Killer Kane says, you're lying, kid. You can't fool me. That's when Freak squeezes the trigger and sprays him right in the eyes. Then Killer Kane is screaming in this high, scared voice. His hands are scrubbing at his eyes, and it's like that scream wakes me up, because the next thing I know, I've got Freak in my arms, and I'm running through the dark for the stairs, running as fast as I can on feet, and I can't even feel. Go! Freak is yelling. He's right behind you. Go! I can't look back, but I can feel him. Feel the icy cold of him on the back of my neck and the hands reaching blind to grab me. And then I'm going up the stairs, just flying. The steps are breaking under my feet and he's howling in rage behind me. His hands are scrabbling at my ankles and just for a second, he has me. I kick loose and then we're up on the ground floor, bursting out of the cellar hole. I can see daylight coming through the boarded up plywood and I cover Freak with my arms and just dive through that plywood. Wham! The sunlight blinds me and we're skitter rolling through the clean, cold snow. Hands are grabbing me and I'm fighting to get away. Easy, a voice says. Take it easy, kid. You're okay. Iggy Lee, he's looking down at me with red eyes and you can see where he's been chewing at his beard. I'm sitting there in the snow, squinting up at Iggy and all these cops. There must be a million cops. And Freak is laughing like a maniac and saying, It worked! He fell for it! Soap and vinegar and curry powder! It worked like a charm! I don't understand what he's talking about right then. It's only later I figure out there wasn't any real acid in the squirt gun. It was soap and vinegar and curry powder that made Killer Kane think his eyes were burning up. Killer Kane, who was still rubbing frantic at his eyes and begging for help when they put the handcuffs on him and shove him into the back of the police van. All I've got room to think about is poor Loretta. That's what I'm telling the cops, that she's down there in the cellar. I'm afraid that no one is listening, but they must be, because right away they're bringing her up out of the cellar, and Iggy is running to her and crying out her name. She's still breathing, somebody says. Then Graham is shoving through the crowd of cops, and Grim is right behind her. And Gwen is there too. And everybody is making a big sloppy fuss, especially Graham, who's hugging me so tight I can hardly breathe. The fair Gwen is hugging Freak, and she's saying, I told you to stay in that car, didn't I? Didn't I? Freak is looking over her shoulder at me. He's looking over her shoulder at me, looking over Graham's shoulder, and he's giving me the thumbs up sign as she carries him away. Freak the Mighty, he says. Freak the Mighty strikes again.